In a town forgotten by time, some secrets don't stay buried. They fester. They wait. For 10 years, Liam thought the past was dead. He was wrong. Now the whispers are starting again. The same whispers that preceded a death a decade ago. And this time, they're calling his name. The small house was filled with the quiet sounds of a family meal. The clinking of forks against ceramic plates. The low murmur of conversation. The air, thick with the smell of roasted chicken and potatoes, felt heavy with unspoken words. Vincent, his face a roadmap of wrinkles carved by 60-odd years of hard living, finally broke the silence. He set his fork down, the sound sharp in the stillness. "So, that trip up the mountain," he began, his voice raspy. He looked at his son, his eyes searching. "Was it worth it? You and the others were gone for nearly a month. Your mother and we were starting to worry."
Liam managed a tired smile, the expression not quite reaching his eyes. "It was fine, Dad. Everything's fine. We found a good haul of wild ginseng. The market's paying top dollar for it this season." He pushed a piece of potato around his plate. "There was just a lot to harvest. That's why we stayed so long. I left the whole batch with my brother-in-law. We'll split the profits once he sells it."
Vincent nodded slowly, accepting the answer. But Sarah, Liam's mother, couldn't hide her anxiety. "A month is too long, son," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I worry about you up there. Running out of food, getting hurt, anything could happen. Every night I just prayed for you to come home safe." Liam shook his head, a soft chuckle escaping him. "You don't need to worry so much, Mom. I'm not a kid anymore. Besides, we plan these things out. We always pack more than enough supplies." He paused, a flicker of a genuine smile appearing for the first time. "And we got pretty good at hunting. A few squirrels, a rabbit. We ate well. The only thing I missed was this." He gestured around the table. "Home." Sarah's expression softened, but Vincent's remained stern. "You're almost 40, still letting your mother dote on you," he grumbled, though there was no real heat in his words. "So, what's next? You planning another trip, or are you going to find some other line of work?" "I'll rest up for a few days, then head back out. There's still plenty of ginseng up there. It feels wrong to leave it." "If you want to go, I won't stop you," Sarah sighed, a familiar argument surfacing. "But you need to think about your life, Liam. Find a nice girl, settle down. Give your father and me a grandchild to hold before we're too old to see." She looked at him, her voice pleading. "Are you going to wait until we're 6 feet under before you even think about starting a family?" Liam's head dropped. The familiar ache settled in his chest. "Mom, my work is in the mountains, in the forest. Who would I even meet? Please, just give me some time. That's why I'm telling you to find work here, in town," she insisted. "Stay home with us, find a wife, have kids. That's all we want." Liam fell silent. He picked up his fork, took a few more bites of the now cold food, the taste gone. The conversation was over. I'm tired," he mumbled, pushing his chair back. "I think I'll turn it." He disappeared into the darkness of the hallway, his footsteps heavy. The soft click of his bedroom door closing was like a final punctuation mark on a painful subject. Vincent watched the empty space where his son had been. He sighed, a long, weary sound. "You have to let him be, Sarah," he said quietly to his wife. "Pushing him will only make it worse. You know he still thinks about that girl." Sarah put her fork down, her own appetite gone. A single tear traced a path down her unseen cheek. "I know," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Of course I know. That's why I want him to move on, to find someone new and forget what happened to Rose. It hurts me to see him like this. It's been 10 years, Vincent. 10 years." Vincent looked towards his son's room, then out the window into the blackness of the Appalachian night. "Just let him be," he repeated softly. "Let's finish dinner. Talking about it will only bring back the sadness." Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. She picked up her fork, but paused. "Speaking of that time," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "did you hear the talk in the village about the old shrine?" "What talk?" "Honestly, Vincent, you live in your own world. People have been talking about it for days. The old shrine, by the kapok tree at the edge of the hamlet. They're saying—" "The demon shrine," Vincent scoffed. "What now?" "I don't know the details," Sarah admitted, her voice laced with fear. "I just hear bits and pieces at the market. Whispers, strange lights, odd noises. It sounds just like it did back then, right before what happened to Rose." "Don't be ridiculous," Vincent snapped, his patience wearing thin. "That girl, Rose, she was attacked. Some monster did that to her. It had nothing to do with some haunted shrine." "How can you be so sure?" Sarah shot back, her fear turning to defiance. "They found her right there, on the riverbank, not 50 feet from that kapok tree. How is that not connected? I still get goosebumps just thinking about it."
"Stop it," Vincent warned. "And whatever is happening now, it's none of our business. Let it be." Sarah's face hardened. "You say that now," she muttered. "But what if it's our son who gets hurt this time? You're a real piece of work. You know that?" Vincent fell silent, his anger deflating into a deep sigh. He stared out the window again, his gaze fixed on the distant, dark woods, his mind drifting back to a memory he had long tried to bury.
Inside his room, Liam wasn't resting. He stood with his back pressed against the door, having heard every word of his parents' conversation. His eyes, unseen in the shadows, glistened with unshed tears. Nearly 40 and still unmarried. The reason wasn't his work, not really. It wasn't that he never met anyone.
The real reason was a ghost, a memory named Rose. 10 years ago, she had died in his arms. He had found her on that cursed riverbank near the ancient kapok tree. She was still breathing, just barely. She had reached up, her cold fingers brushing against his cheek, her eyes wide with terror. A final, convulsive shudder, and then nothing. She had died on him, and the pain of that moment was a wound that had never healed. He blamed himself. If he had only been a little faster that day, if he had returned from the mountain an hour sooner, maybe his fiancée would still be alive. For a decade, that guilt had been his constant companion, poisoning any thought of a future, of marriage, of children. And beneath the guilt, a darker obsession simmered. He needed to know the truth. Why did Rose have to die? What had led her to the river that day? He refused to believe it was a simple drowning. Someone or something had caused it. But after 10 years of fruitless, silent investigation, he was no closer to an answer. If there was a killer, they had vanished without a trace. The trail was ice cold. Liam was born and raised in Still Creek, a place where time seemed to flow as slowly as the murky river it was named after. Life was a struggle. The women tended to the small garden plots, while the men ventured into the vast, unforgiving forests to hunt or to forage for ginseng and wild honey, anything of value to scrape by. It was a tradition passed down through generations.
His father, Vincent, had been a legendary forager in his day, but age had stiffened his joints and stolen his strength, forcing him to trade the mountains for the fields, leaving the family's legacy in the forest to Liam.
At the far end of Still Creek, where the hamlet frayed into wilderness, stood the kapok tree. It was ancient, immense, a silent god of the forest. At its base, nestled amongst the gnarled roots, was the shrine. 100 yards away, the Still Creek River flowed, its waters deep enough to swallow a grown man. Its currents treacherous. People avoided it unless they had to. The shrine had its own dark history. Legend said it was built to honor some forgotten nature spirit, but over time the stories had curdled. People started calling it the Demon Shrine. They said a woman had been murdered and buried beneath the kapok tree centuries ago, and her vengeful spirit haunted the nights with mournful cries. The story went that one day the body of a man was found there, his ankle locked in the bony grip of a hand reaching up from the earth. They said he was the murderer, finally claimed by his victim. The villagers dug up the woman's remains and reburied them elsewhere, building the shrine to appease her restless soul. The crying stopped, and a fragile peace returned. There were other tales, all of them unverifiable, all of them unsettling. But for the people of Still Creek, the legends became terrifyingly real 10 years ago. After the shrine was linked to a few strange occurrences, Rose died. With no killer found, the town came to its own conclusion. Rose hadn't been murdered by a man, but by the demon in the shrine. From that day on, no one dared to go near the kapok tree. They carved a new path to the river, a long, inconvenient detour, just to avoid it. The belief that the shrine was a gateway for a malevolent entity became gospel. To disturb it was to invite a curse upon your family. And so, the shrine and the kapok tree, a species already steeped in folklore, were left to rot, a monument to the town's fear. For 10 years, that fear lay dormant, until now. Recently, the whispers had returned. People out after dark heard it first, a faint sorrowful weeping. A woman's cry carried on the night wind. At first, they dismissed it, but then those who dared to look saw them, strange glowing lights hovering around the shrine. The pattern was repeating. The events were mirroring the days that led to Rose's death. And the fear, once a dull ache, was becoming a sharp stabbing pain in the heart of Still Creek. The fear in Still Creek was a contagious disease, and the local general store was its breeding ground. Amidst the sacks of flour and jars of pickled vegetables, the whispers spread like wildfire. "Did you hear it last night?" a woman asked, her voice hushed as she clutched a bag of groceries to her chest. "The crying?" An older man, leaning against a counter, nodded grimly. "Clear as a bell. Woke me right up. Same as it was 10 years back.
My wife made me check all the locks, twice. Another woman chimed in, her eyes wide. It's not just the crying. Jimmy's boy, on his way home from his cousin's place, said he saw lights down by the kapok tree. Said it looked like foxfire, he called it, strange and blue. That's what I heard too, the first woman exclaimed. And my sister, she was out late bringing the goat in. She swore she saw something moving in the shadows by the shrine. Said she ran home so fast she nearly broke her ankle.
A heavy silence fell over the small group. They all knew what this meant. The signs were unmistakable. It's because the day is coming, a new voice croaked, silencing everyone. It was Old Lady Miller, a woman whose age was as much a mystery as the lines on her face. She sat on a low stool in the corner, almost invisible, until she spoke. Her death day. 10 years. It's in 5 days. A collective gasp went through the store. They had all felt it, but hearing it spoken aloud gave the fear a name and a date. You're right, someone whispered. Oh Lord, it's happening all over again. I've seen more than lights, Old Lady Miller continued, her voice a dry rustle of leaves. I've seen the will-o'-the-wisps, the soul lights. They gather where there is great sorrow. I saw them 10 years ago, too. And last night, I saw a shadow standing amongst them, a figure watching the town. A man scoffed nervously. Now, Eleanor, your eyes ain't what they used to be, probably just a trick of the light. My eyes may be old, but I know the difference between a shadow and a man. And I know what it means when the spirits get restless. Something wicked is stirring in Still Creek. She added one last chilling detail. And last night, when the crying started, it wasn't just crying, it was calling out names. My name. It called for me to come out. The blood drained from the faces of everyone present. They had heard it too. A whisper on the wind, their own names woven into the sound of sorrow, a lure into the darkness. It was a mercy that their parents had all taught them the cardinal rule of the mountains. Never, ever answer a voice you don't recognize in the night.
The adults huddled in fear, but the town's children felt a different emotion, a terrifying thrill. In a clearing behind the last houses of the hamlet, a group of boys gathered, their ringleader a scrappy 10-year-old named Owen. I'm telling you, it's a real ghost, Owen declared, puffing out his chest. Down by the kapok tree. My dad says it's the ghost of that lady who died, and she'll kill anyone who gets too close. He grinned. So, who wants to go see it? A younger boy, Toby, the most timid of the group, shook his head violently. No way! My mom said we're not allowed to go to the edge of town after dark. She said it'll get us. Don't be such a baby, Toby, Owen sneered. Are you scared? If you don't go, we're leaving you here all by yourself. He looked around at the others who shifted their feet, a mix of fear and peer pressure on their faces. Reluctantly, they all nodded. And so, the small pack of 5 boys, emboldened by their foolish bravado, crept towards the deepening shadows at the end of Still Creek.
They used the ruins of an abandoned house as their observation post, its crumbling walls providing a false sense of security. They peered around the corner, their eyes fixed on the monstrous silhouette of the kapok tree against the last light of the sky. At first, there was nothing, just the whisper of the wind and the chirping of crickets. See? Nothing, one of the boys whispered, sounding relieved. Let's go home. Wait, Owen hissed. Just a little longer. They waited, the thrill slowly evaporating and being replaced by a cold, creeping dread. Toby,
standing at the very back of the group, could only see the backs of his three friends, with Owen completely obscured from his view. Suddenly, a hand clamped down hard on his shoulder, fingers digging into his flesh. He yelped, "Hey, what'd you do that for?"
Do what? Shut up, you'll give us away. The boy in front of him, Dylan, whispered back harshly. The hand was gone. Toby kept watching. A moment later, it happened again. A vicious squeeze on his shoulder that made him cry out in pain. He ducked his head out to the side, expecting to see Owen playing a prank, but all he saw were his three friends. Owen was nowhere in sight. "Owen, stop it! It's not funny! You're hurting me!" Toby whined. Dylan turned around, his face a mask of annoyance. "What are you talking about? Owen's been right there the whole time!" He looked towards the front of the line. "Right? Ow!" His voice caught in his throat. Owen was gone. "Where'd he go?" Dylan stammered. Toby's voice trembled. "But someone just grabbed my shoulder, really hard. I thought it was him." "I've been standing right here," Owen's voice said, suddenly appearing at the front of the line again as if he'd never left. "I didn't go anywhere. What's wrong with you?"
Toby was about to argue when he saw the look on his friends' faces. All four of them were staring, not at him, but behind him. Their mouths were hanging open, their eyes stretched wide in pure, undiluted terror. "Guys, what is it?" Toby whispered, his own fear now a cold knot in his stomach. Owen just pointed a shaking finger. "Toby, on your shoulder." Toby felt it then, a dead weight, a cold pressure. Something was resting its hand on his shoulder. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't scream. He could only see the reflection of abject horror in his friends' eyes. They saw it clearly, a figure standing behind Toby, a figure made of shadow in moonlight, its skin deathly pale like chalk, its face obscured by a curtain of long black hair.
Ghost! The word shattered the silence. In an instant, the four boys broke. They turned and ran, screaming for their mothers, for help, for anyone. They scrambled over each other in their desperation to escape, leaving Toby rooted to the spot. The last thing Toby heard was the single word, ghost, before his mind shut down, his eyes rolling back in his head as he collapsed in a heap on the cold ground. The parents, drawn out by the terrified screams, found four hysterical boys babbling about a ghost. Toby's mother, her face pale with panic, realized her son wasn't with them. "Where's Toby? Where is my son?" Owen, sobbing, could only point back towards the abandoned house. He's still there. The ghost got him." A group of men, armed with flashlights and a grim determination, rushed to the scene. They found Toby unconscious but breathing, curled up by the crumbling wall. As they carried him back to the village, he began to murmur, his voice a low, terrifying chant that none of them would ever forget. "You have to die. You all have to die." That same night, the night before Rose's memorial, Mr. Peterson, the portly town chief, was walking home late. As he fumbled with the keys to his front door, a flicker of movement at the edge of his vision made him pause. He looked up and saw a figure in the distance, a young woman, her silhouette unmistakable against the moonlit road. She was walking slowly, deliberately, toward the end of the hamlet, towards the kapok tree. "Hey!" Mr. Peterson called out, his voice more annoyed than concerned. "Who's out there? It's late. Go home. That area is not safe. There's ghosts out there."
The girl stopped, but didn't turn around. She just stood there, a silent statue in the middle of the road. "What's wrong with these kids today?" Peterson muttered to himself. "Hey, I'm talking to you. What are you doing out there?" It's dangerous. Still, she didn't move. A flicker of anger went through him. Damn disrespectful youth. Just as the curse left his lips, she turned.
Even from a distance, her face seemed unnaturally pale, a white smear in the darkness. A cold dread, heavy and suffocating, began to settle over Mr. Peterson. This wasn't just some girl. His teeth started to chatter, his jaw clattering uncontrollably. His eyes widened in horrified recognition. It was Rose, the girl who had been dead for 10 years. What in God's name? He whimpered. He fumbled frantically with the lock, the keys scraping uselessly against the metal. Finally, it turned. He threw the door open, stumbled inside, and slammed it shut, bolting it from the inside. He leaned against the wood, his heart hammering against his ribs, convinced he had just seen a ghost. Miles away from the town's growing panic, in a small, silent house near the river, Liam was communing with his own ghost. It was Rose's house. After she died, with her parents long gone, there was no one left to care for it. No one but Liam. Every time he returned from the mountains, he would come here. He would sweep the floors, wipe the dust from the furniture, and light a stick of incense, the fragrant smoke a poor substitute for her presence. Tonight, on the eve of her death day, he wasn't cleaning. He was just standing in the dark, sleeping in her old bed, surrounded by her lingering scent. He remembered her as a child, sensitive and quick to cry, especially after her parents passed. His own mother and father had loved her like a daughter, always hoping the two childhood friends would one day marry. Their wish had been so close to coming true, but a cruel twist of fate, a mystery never solved, had torn it all away.
Was it just a drowning, or was she murdered? The question had tormented him for a decade. Lately, with the town's new fears, another thought, one he hated, crept into his mind. Could the legends be true? Could some thing from the shrine have been responsible for her death?
The next day, the day of the memorial, Liam and his parents prepared a small feast in Rose's honor. It was a ritual he'd observed every year. Most of the town understood and sympathized with his unending grief. After the simple rites were done, a few neighbors stayed to share the meal. The house, usually so quiet, felt alive with conversation. Mr. Peterson, the town chief, was there, looking pale and distracted. "Mr. Peterson," Liam asked, trying to make small talk, "how's the talk about the land prices? Any better?" "Same as it ever was," Peterson grunted, shaking his head. Then he leaned in, his voice lowering. "Although I hear the county is planning to develop this area. Might be a new road coming through. Land values could skyrocket. If anyone's thinking of selling, now's the time. The government won't pay you nearly as much when they seize it."
A road? Where are they planning on building it? Someone asked. Peterson took a sip of his drink. I heard a rumor. It'll cut right through the end of the hamlet, right where the kapok tree and that old shrine are. A grizzled man slammed his cup down. No, they can't touch that place. You want the whole town to be cursed? That place is evil. Peterson shrugged. Times are changing. Who believes in ghosts and curses anymore? I do, the man shot back, and you, as town chief, should be protecting us, not inviting disaster.
The argument was broken by a woman's gentle voice. She turned to Liam. "Liam, honey, please forgive me for saying this, but I think you should take Rose's memorial tablet back to your own house. This house, with everything that's been happening,
It's not safe here. I'm worried for you." "Thank you," Liam said quietly. "I'll think about it." He had thought about it, but this was her home, and her parents' home. He couldn't just move their spirits as he pleased. It wouldn't be right.
Ghost stories. Another man at the table scoffed. A man who often went foraging with Liam. It's all nonsense. Rose didn't get killed by a ghost. She was murdered. Someone in this town killed her. A pretty girl like that, walking alone by the river at night. Someone took advantage. "You shut your mouth," an older woman hissed. "Have some respect. It's the day of her memorial." The man just shrugged and took another bite of food, but not before casting a strange, fleeting glance at the memorial altar on the wall. A look that was gone as quickly as it appeared. The memorial passed, but the oppressive atmosphere in Still Creek only thickened. A blight fell upon the hamlet. Chickens and ducks, once healthy, suddenly sickened and died. Cattle, the lifeblood of many families, collapsed in their fields. Even the dogs and cats were not spared. A strange, wasting sickness swept through the town's children. They burned with fevers that no medicine could break, their bodies growing weaker by the day. The most severely afflicted were the 4 boys who had accompanied Toby to the abandoned house, and Toby himself, though physically recovered, was a shell. His eyes were vacant, his face a constant, unnerving blank slate. And in the quiet moments, his parents would hear him whisper the same chilling words over and over again. "You have to die. All of you have to die." The nights became a time of collective terror. The weeping from the woods was a constant, mournful lullaby. But one night, it was joined by a new sound. Footsteps. An elderly couple, the Mays, lay clutching each other in the dark, listening to the soft, rhythmic tread outside their home. The steps grew closer, stopping directly outside their bedroom window. For a heart-stopping moment, there was only silence. Then, with a violent clatter, the window latch broke and the shutters flew open, banging against the outside wall. Framed in the window, shrouded in darkness, was the figure of a young woman. Her long hair blew wildly in the night wind. The Mays froze, their breath caught in their throats, their hearts threatening to burst. The figure slowly turned its head, and even in the gloom they saw a face as pale as bone. The spirit of Rose stared into their very souls for a long, terrifying moment, then turned and walked away, the sound of her footsteps fading into the night. They didn't dare move until dawn, and even then only to tell the rest of the terrified town what they had seen. Soon their story was echoed by others. The ghost of Rose was no longer just a sound in the woods. She was walking the streets, visiting homes, peering into windows with dead, accusatory eyes. Liam heard the stories, a knot of ice forming in his stomach. He didn't want to believe it. This vengeful, terrifying spirit, this couldn't be the Rose he loved. The more the townspeople whispered of ghosts and curses, the more a cold, hard conviction grew inside him. This was the work of a man, not a phantom. A cunning, cruel man using the town's fear as a shield.
Then came the first body. A man named Sanders, who'd been one of Rose's most ardent admirers 10 years ago, was found at sunrise. He was hanging from a thick branch of the kapok tree, his body turning slowly in the morning breeze. The town exploded in a fresh wave of panic and morbid certainty. "I told you," one man declared, his voice shaking. "She's back for revenge. She's taking the ones who hurt her." The authorities ruled it a suicide, citing a fight with his wife and a history of drinking. But Still Creek knew better. The ghost had claimed its first victim.
A few days later, it happened again. Another man, Dean, who had also pursued Rose in his youth, was found dead. His body was at the foot of the shrine itself, forced into a kneeling position as if in prayer. His head was brutally bashed in, the dark blood staining the weathered wood of the shrine. This was no suicide. This was a savage execution. Now even the skeptics were silenced. It had to be the ghost. Who else could kill with such impunity, leaving no trace, no clues? The conclusion was inescapable. Rose had been attacked by more than one man, and her spirit would not rest until they all had paid the price.
But on a moonless night, under the cover of the whispering trees, a very human evil was at work. A figure dragged a heavy, limp body towards the kapok tree, the sound a dry rustle of leaves and dirt. It was Mr. Peterson, the town chief. He paused, breathing heavily, and glanced at the unconscious man at his feet, the third victim. He sneered, then looked around nervously, clutching a small folded piece of paper in his pocket, a protective talisman he'd acquired years ago. "Can't touch me, you bitch! This will keep you away!"
He worked quickly, tying a noose and throwing the rope over a high branch. He began to pull, hoisting the body from the ground. But as the rope tightened, he felt a sudden, sharp pressure around his own neck. He gasped, dropping the rope and clawing at his throat. To his horror, the noose was around him. Panic seized him. He fumbled for the talisman, his only protection, but his pocket was empty. It was gone, dropped somewhere in the dark. A cold sweat broke out on his skin as he frantically untangled the rope, his heart pounding with the terror of his own near-death experience. Shaken but undeterred, he found the real end of the rope and finished his grim task, convinced he had just survived an attack from the ghost he was using as his alibi. The next morning, the third body was found. The town descended into complete paranoia. Mr. Peterson stood before the terrified crowd, his face a mask of authority and sorrow. "I've told you," he boomed. "If anyone else was involved in what happened to that poor girl, confess now. Her spirit will not rest. No one can save you if you don't come forward." His words were met with shaking heads and fearful denials. The seeds of his deception had taken root and blossomed into a forest of terror.
That night, a storm broke over Still Creek. Rain fell in blinding sheets, and thunder cracked the sky. Inside his home, Mr. Peterson was trying to calm his nerves when he heard a loud knock at the door. Must be the man who wants to sell his land, he thought, a flicker of greed momentarily overriding his fear. "Who is it?" he called out. "Come on in, it's open." He walked to the door, a smile on his face, but when he looked out, there was no one there, only the swirling rain. He was about to shut the door when he heard it, the squelch of footsteps in the mud to his right. He peered into the deluge, seeing nothing. Then a flash of lightning illuminated the night, and for a split second he saw her, standing at the corner of his house, Rose.
No, stay away, he screamed, stumbling back inside. He ran, not to hide, but to find his spare talisman. It was his only hope. But he couldn't find it. The ghost's laughter, high and chilling, echoed outside, mingling with the storm. At the same moment, across town, Toby shot up in bed. He threw his dinner plate to the floor and stared out the window, his eyes wide and unseeing. "I've found you," he said in a voice that was not his own. He stood up and walked out into the storm.
His parents, terrified, chased after him, following his small, determined figure through the mud and rain. They found him standing stock still in front of Mr. Peterson's house. As they reached him, they heard a strangled cry from within. "Help! Help me!" Peering through the window, they saw a horrifying sight. Mr. Peterson was on the floor, clawing at his own throat, his face turning purple. The commotion drew neighbors, and soon Liam arrived, his face grim. He saw Toby standing like a sentinel, his parents trying to pull him away. He saw the chaos inside. But then, as he looked past Toby into the driving rain, he saw her, too.
It was Rose, the ghost, her eyes filled with a decade of pain and sorrow met his. His body trembled, not with fear, but with a profound, soul-shattering grief. He took a staggering step forward, his lips forming her name, but no sound came out. The ghost looked from Liam to the struggling man inside the house, her expression hardening into one of pure fury. "She's going to kill me!" Peterson shrieked from inside. Before anyone could react, Liam moved. He strode into the house, his movements unnaturally fluid, his eyes fixed on Peterson. The villagers tried to stop him, thinking he'd gone mad. "Liam, no! What are you doing?" He shoved them aside with astonishing strength. "Get out of the way," he snarled, but the voice that came out was different. It was a woman's voice. It was Rose's voice. The crowd fell back, paralyzed by a terror beyond comprehension. Liam, or the thing that was Liam, marched to Peterson, grabbed him by the throat, and lifted him effortlessly into the air. "I found you," the voice hissed from Liam's mouth. "I finally found you." Peterson choked and sputtered, his legs kicking uselessly. Just as it seemed his life would end, Liam's parents threw themselves to the floor, weeping. "Rose, please, child, stop," Sarah cried. "We know you were wronged, but don't do this. Don't make our son a murderer."
The pressure on Peterson's throat lessened. Tears began to stream down Liam's face. Rose's spirit was still there, but Liam was fighting, his love for her warring with her lust for vengeance. "Rose, stop!" Liam's own voice rasped, struggling for control. "Trust me, let me do this. Let me get you justice." A single, whispered sentence escaped his lips, audible only to him. "I never killed anyone." And then the spirit of Rose seemed to make a decision. The rage in Liam's eyes focused into a cold, hard point. He dropped Peterson to the floor and pointed a trembling finger at him. "You have one chance," Rose's voice commanded, resonating with supernatural authority. "Confess. Tell them what you did, or I will drag you to hell myself." Broken, terrified, and staring into the face of a ghost wearing his victim's lover's skin, Mr. Peterson confessed. The whole sordid tale spilled out. The land deal, Rose's refusal to sell, the argument, the struggle, pushing her into the cistern, thinking she was dead, panicking and dumping her body in the river. He confessed to using the town's folklore to cover his crime, a crime that was nearly exposed when the land deal was revived. He confessed to murdering Sanders, Dean, and the third man, all of whom owned land he coveted,
and staging their deaths to look like the work of a vengeful ghost, hoping the panic would force the town to let him demolish the shrine. He was not a man. He was a demon in human flesh. When the confession was over, a profound stillness fell over the room. The presence of Rose faded from Liam, leaving him trembling and exhausted. He looked at the sniveling creature on the floor who had stolen his life from him, not with rage, but with a vast, empty pity.
Mr. Peterson faced the justice of the law, and with the truth revealed, the strange phenomena in Still Creek ceased. The weeping on the wind was gone. The sickness left the children. The town learned the shrine was never for a demon, but a memorial for forgotten souls lost to famine long ago, souls who perhaps had grown restless from neglect. Liam finally had the truth. It didn't bring Rose back, but it released him from the prison of not knowing. He gave her a proper burial next to her parents on a hill overlooking the river. The haunting was over, both for Still Creek and for his own heart. The ghost was gone. Only the love remained.